All right, and gentlemen, today is Tommy Cuozzi, who fights Ramiro Jimenez at Dana White's Contender Series Week 2. That fight is on August 19th. So, Tommy, I got to start here. I love talking to guys who get the Contender Series call. So, tell me, where were you? Who gave you the call? How'd you find out the news?
So I actually started working with a manager. So for pretty much my entire fight career, my parents were my manager. And they, got me as far as they did, and they're still working with my manager and they're helping out a lot. So I still consider my manager, but Derek Brunson, um, he started managing me and kind of helping. So we've been in touch with the matchmaker and just kind of back and forth, like, oh, we think we can find him a match here, with there may be some here. And a few weeks ago we got the call, or I guess he got the call or the email and was like, hey, we got him a match at featherweight. And then I was actually on vacation at the time. I was on my honeymoon. And they were like, oh yeah, we got you a match. So I stayed up all night that night doing some research.
So tell me, you're on your honeymoon, probably trying to indulge a little bit. How was the weight? Were you worried about it at all?
Not so much. So I typically I'll maintain a relatively healthy weight, and we're gonna make that a little bit healthier in the future as well. But I'm never like super far from weight. We're not pulling a Patty Pimblett getting up to 200 pounds. Um, but indulge a little bit, and then once I got back, I started cleaning it up a little bit, eating a little healthier, and we'll be good to go.
That's awesome to hear. Now, I'm curious about your journey here because you're talking about having pretty much your parents, manage you for 8 fights or, which is a long time and more for amateur, right?
Yeah.
So what made you sort of decide now is the time where I got to step it up a little bit? Now's the time I got to look for some help.
Well, so I kind of, it was my decision at the same time. It was kind of like we had because I fight for UBG, which is one of the promoters is Derek Brunson. And just through talking to him, through my parents talking to him, we kind of realized like, hey, we're going to need some actual, like management, not just, what we had was fantastic and it got me super far, but we don't have anyone's contact information. We don't have the same connection. So it was a business decision on all of our ends. It wasn't me just going, I need more. It was all of us going, all right, well, this will probably, be. Great for all of us. So I signed with a top tier talent agency, and
I love it. Yeah, no, the rest
yeah,
is history, right? So
that's
let's
right.
talk a little bit about the trip you've been on in terms of your pro career too, because I was looking at your record, and you see the end of your amateur career, 4 losses in a row, right? You were in a little bit of a rough spell, and then you're like, screw it, I'm going pro anyway. So talk me through the decision at that time, and then like, what sort of change? What got you over the hump?
Um, Stubbornness, really. That's what it boils down to. I'm a big fan of God's gonna put me where I need to be. So I feel like with those losses, like you said, I ended on it's like a 4 fight loss streak. So not in the best mindset, but with a loss, you can take that and you can go, well, I suck. I'm gonna stay here and be stagnant. Or you can go, let's learn from that. Let's figure out what we did wrong and progress. And each time, like I said, the losses were still losses. It's not a lesson until you make it one. But when you make it a lesson, you get better. And after that fourth one, the first promotion I fought on, Fight Night Challenge, they hit me up and they were like, hey, do you want a match? It was actually against the first guy I lost to. They're like, you want a match against this guy, but at the pro stage. And I was like, I mean, don't tease me with a good time. Let's do it. And it didn't work out with that opponent, but at that point, the bug was already put in. So I was like, well, I guess we're gonna go pro and see what happens, and it worked out for the best.
Well, and it seems like you've got the right mental state for all of this, right? Like to go through rough times, to work through, like, exactly what you were saying with promoters before. Is there any secret to that? Have you been through mental training? It seems like you've got like all the things that they teach people when they go to mental coaches. Like, do you just have that naturally?
So I've never been to any sort of mental training, anything. So I grew up, and I think my family and my friends' love language was kind of bullying, and it wasn't, it never like a harsh bullying, like it wasn't like serious, But like we just knew, like if so and so messed with me, like they liked me. If I mess with so and so, they like me. If I don't mess with you, right, I'm very professional and cordial. Like it's kind of we're on the off end there. But I think that really helped a lot. It was funny. My mom was talking the other day. She was like, now, because right now I'm the underdog for this fight, and understandably so. Ramiro is, he's up there. He's gonna be the toughest guy I've ever fought. But mom was like, look, at this stage, you're gonna get guys that are they're gonna talk trash online. They're gonna say things. You just got to ignore it. And I was like, Mom, you've called me fat every day of my life. Like if you see me down a whole pizza, you're like, wow, chunky, and I'm like we're good. I've been trained for this. She means it with love, though. Everyone who does, they mean it with love.
And no, so that's great. I love that your mom's part of the training there too, the
Oh,
sensitivity training. But like, so I was also, looking at the gym you come from too. Your dad is the head trainer at that gym as well, right? It's Tom Cuozzi. It's martial arts.
yeah, so Tommy Cuozzi. So just a little play
Yeah.
on words. But yeah, so he's the head coach. And my mom actually helps coach with like the kickboxing and the Muay Thai class, but he's the head coach. I teach a lot of the classes. I have multiple instructors. We've got Corbin, we've got Ray, we've got John Motley. Just a whole list of things, a whole list of people that come and help. We got Bubba. Just I know you don't know any of them on a first name basis, but so many people that come in and help train. It's unreal.
Well, and then so tell me a little bit about, because now you're telling me your parents not only are your upbringing in terms of sensitivity training and your managers, but also your coaches. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about what your birth was in martial arts. Like, I mean, obviously you've been doing this since a young age. Give me what sort of got you to the fighting side of things.
So, real quick, I think I mentioned him, but there were a lot of coaches. I want to mention my coach Will as well. I don't know if I mentioned him or not, but I didn't want to leave him out. But so getting into it was, not nothing special. It was just a thing that was close by. And I loved Power Rangers. I like Dragon Ball. So I wanted to do all that. I wanted to be the Green Ranger. So they were like, well, there's this martial arts place down here. Do you want to do that? And I was playing baseball and football at the time in elementary school, and they were like, well, you kind of, it's a balance. You got to choose which one do you want to do time wise. And clearly, we see what choice I made, but it was the right choice for sure. I have not regretted it one time.
I love it. Now we've mentioned the name Ramiro Jimenez a couple of times in this interview already, so let's talk about it too. So you get that name, you're on your honeymoon. You said you stayed up all night watching it. What were sort of your first impressions of him?
Uh, so I'm never one to trash talk. I'm gonna hype my opponents up, honestly, and he's good. Every aspect of his game, he's good. And everyone, myself included, there's holes in games. So we're both gonna try to exploit each other's holes. I stayed up studying to see where I could. But honestly, everywhere he's very well rounded. Solid stand up, solid groundwork, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, So it's gonna be it'll be a tough wall to break through for sure. No, the nerves are there, but it is what it is. We're gonna throw down full send for 15 minutes and see what happens.
I dig it. Now I also got to obviously ask, because this is a different experience than just fighting for a UFC contract, because you're fighting for a UFC contract with Dana White in the first row, and he's going to afterwards, talk about whether or not you were exciting or not. Which to some people doesn't matter. They're going to go in there and fight. But is
Right.
it weighing on your head at all how exciting you? I mean, obviously you got all the finishes up there too. So like, are you worried at all about how exciting you look in there?
Um, in a way, yes. I'm a big fan of fight smarter, not harder, So if you go in and you're not having success in one realm, take it to another realm. I'm not just gonna push harder, try to drive the nail through if it's not working, So I think ultimately the win is gonna be more important. But we're gonna try to put on a show. That's clearly, that's weighing in the back of my head, and I know it plays a big factor in obtaining a contract. They don't want you to sit back for 3 rounds and land ones and twos and hope for the best. I outstruck you by 2 strikes, and there were 14 strikes thrown for 15 minutes. So we're gonna go out and we're gonna try to fight like we always do, but worst comes to worst, we're chasing the win.
Absolutely. Well, that leads me perfectly to my last question. I always like to end these things with a prediction. So tell me, how does this one end come August 19th?
So anytime I'm ever asked that question, I'm terrible at predictions. Not that I get them wrong, I just don't like making them. I'm big on not trash talking, and so we're gonna go in, we're gonna try to win. We're gonna try to get our contract and our hand raised, but regardless, we're gonna put on a show. We're gonna put on. It's gonna be a fight. We're gonna we're gonna send some fireworks. He fights. Most of his fights are finishes, so it's gonna be a banger either way. Just look forward to an explosive 1 to 15 minutes.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. And once again, fans, this is Tommy Cuozzi, who fights Ramiro Jimenez, Dana White's Contender Series Week 2. Once again, that fight, August 19th. Tommy, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.